This latest season of anime finally had something good for once. Closest thing we'll ever get to a Goodnight Poon Poon adaptation, and the closest thing we'll ever get to a good adaptation of something even similar to it. Well, that's kind of reductive, but in my eyes, I haven't been interested in much coming out. Takopi's Original Sin is a standout show in an already decently packed season, airing next to City, Dan to Dan Season 2, Rascals Not Dreaming of Santa Claus, and New Panty and Stocking. I say stacked, but the reason is more so that it has a lot of recognizable properties from previous seasons alongside long-awaited sequels. The only one that doesn't really fit into this is City. It's a new property, and the only one I've heard buzz about. While the only other non-sequel that looked interesting is what I can smell out to be possible yaoi bait. Haven't seen it, you can't prove it, but I just know it's got something homosexual in it. Takopi was a show that interested me way back when the trailer was released, since I'm just another junkie looking for my next hit of depressing yet uplifting art. Just another one on the list for hopecore, you can describe it as. And when it was released, I watched episode 1 and knew instantly that it was going to be good. It follows the perspective of a guardian-like alien shaped like a tiny octopus named Takopi that aims to ensure the happiness of itself and others. And just in the pilot, brutal realism, unafraid to go where people won't, might be considered a little bit edgy. It ticked every box I would want in something experimental. And I got tired of waiting every week after episode 2 released, and so I took around an hour to read the 16-chapter manga, since it felt like I needed something more than I was already being given. And this was obviously a bad decision. Even though I liked the manga a lot, it was mainly just one due to the fact that I was being impatient. And this was the inciting factor for why I'm making this video now, so whether or not that was actually a good decision is up to how pretentious and annoying you think I sound. There's a reason why most adaptations get criticized to death. Rarely do they ever have some kind of pull that makes them a different or better experience. Preferably they should strive to be different but similar, but I ask you though, why would you watch a one-for-one remake of something you've already essentially experienced? I mean, this is more true for games, but partially goes for visual mediums like TV and anime. And while I both disagree and agree with the statement based on what we're talking about, today I want to argue a crazy controversial take that I don't know if people are going to agree with. Sometimes doing a one-to-one adaptation is a good thing. Though, more often than not, adaptations are criticized for a weird combination of being too faithful and also being too loose with the source material. Takopi is not only incredibly faithful, but takes liberties with the source material in terms of presentation. The juxtaposition between the two complaints is reasonable most of the time. It gets the vision muddied and ends up ruining the reason why people would want it adapted in the first place. A good example of something getting blasted for trying something new, yet actually being pretty faithful, is the Flowers of Evil adaptation. While I personally didn't care for it, I prefer the manga heavily, and also the other manga made by the same guy, Blood on the Tracks. It captured the spirit of what it was about. Most people are just uncomfortable with rotoscoping, and the wound gets deeper when the show is based on a disturbingly intense, toxic relationship. By all means, it is a good adaptation, but the art is just done in a weird and experimental way that most people in the mainstream are turned away. And that's the point of what they were doing with it in that particular case. Rotoscoping essentially turns people in the animation into very creepy characters, and the average anime fan probably doesn't really want a very harsh aesthetic that makes them uncomfortable, even for something that is supposed to make them uncomfortable. I don't think Takopi has a problem like that. People are eating good with a show that appeals to their sensibilities in art and animation. In terms of art style, the lankiness of the characters and the intense emotional art style really makes either version great to look at, manga or anime. Every scene is thought out and detailed, looks incredibly pretty at all times. It really is just eye candy, and in comparison to the source, it looks kind of disappointing to look at the manga again. And I know the point of it is trying to swell detail in big moments, but it kind of lessens the impact overall. And when both versions are so short, any moment is important, and giving less detail at all times for the sake of the few in the art kinda cheapens it for me. This doesn't mean I don't like the manga, not at all, but it's aiming for the same idea that I believe the show does better. When it bombards you with sad shit at the climax of every manga chapter, it definitely works in order to emphasize the moments that matter most, to heavily focus on those particular ideas to make them pop. Examples like Shizuka killing herself, Marina's death, and also later on with Marina's mother in 2022, show the detail that's normally missing. I actually think it works really well, symbolically forcing us to experience the type of incidents that force you to look at something through a detailed yet adrenaline-addled, harrowing moment. Everything comes into focus, and it really aims to show that very well. Yet, the issue with this is that it casts everything else as less important, and when your message is that the smaller things and the bigger things all add up and are all important, making certain things pop may send a message that not everything matters as much as the scenes that you emphasize with detail. This may make people subconsciously register less things as necessary in your story. This isn't necessarily a bad thing most of the time, but for something that's 6 episodes long and also wants you to notice every detail, yeah, I would say that it might send a little bit of mixed signals. What people really pay attention to is the baseline quality in particular moments, rather than, everything including the little moments. Otherwise, why would you have the stupid fucking, wow, this Latinx can really cook a beautiful anime taco, or this fight scene looks so good that you can't. And in Takopi's case, I would say that the baseline is already beautiful, making everything look great while not sacrificing the emotional detail of those scenes that make up the height of the action. For a TV show, emotional detail is spread out in plenty of things that make it up. Soundtrack, voice acting, minute animation quirks, things that just can't be expressed in motionless panels. The art style is still unique, nothing changes there, it just allows the things you cannot express in a black and white picture to flourish. These smaller things can be expanded upon better in less time than a manga can. Think about how much a line can change based upon the tone, the atmosphere of the way it was animated. Just everything an animation can do better than a panel is shown in Takopi. A lot of the time it's taken for granted that these things elevate a medium to a different standard than books and music, and people may not realize what makes up the good in a good TV show, a good animation, a good movie, a good song. In the show, you're seeing so much happen in such a short period of time that you focus on everything rather than the specific moments. Maybe that makes everything less memorable, but when everything about a show is memorable, isn't there more to discover that you like? The actual content of the show is some of the most depressing stuff I've seen in a while, but what I think is key to understanding what's done right here is that it's done in a way that showcasing brutality and contrasting with beauty. It's not done with as much grace as some of the other things that I've seen and feel like are better, but I don't think the purpose is to make the viewer feel bad. I think that the idea is actually what may break people's expectations on shows like this. On the surface, you describe the events of the show, you're going to see how awful some of the things they do are. But with anything, the intent is what matters. How well that intent is portrayed is the degree to which most people decide if they love it or not, regardless of how well something is done. And I believe that in Takopi, the intention is to make the viewer try to shove blame onto one after another, but then to provide proof, I guess, no better way to describe it as, that'll make you rethink who is really at fault. There's probably more examples of this type of writing in TV, music, and animation, but one that's currently on my mind is a song from La Dispute's second record, Wildlife. Edward bends 27 times. Takopi doesn't tell the story in a similar way, but the idea of a song about a man whose schizophrenic son couldn't help but attack him by not recognizing him due to his illness, after previously setting up how he couldn't hold a job from treating his illness, only for his father to still recognize him as his son and just accept what happened, reminds me of it. It's horrible, and it's a great story, because it's shown in a way where you make it feel as if it was just no one's fault. There's an air of forgiveness you can't just help feel, helpless about. This record is just full of these tragic types of stories, and this song is sandwiched in between two of the best post-hardcore tracks I've ever heard. Maybe I'll talk about it one day, not now. Listen to King Park, though. The way the story progresses is that it shows us a problem that you'll initially believe is caused by one malicious actor. Shizuka's life is awful, but Takopi's there to help her. Shizuka is being tormented by Marina. However, Marina is being tormented by her mother and father's relationship. But wait, her mother and father's relationship is being strained because of Shizuka's mother. Marina escalates her bullying because Shizuka's happier than usual due to Takopi's help, leading to Takopi saving Shizuka by killing Marina. Then Naoki, the classmate that really wanted to help Shizuka, feels the need to help Shizuka because he's failed at what his mother expects of him. But Naoki sees his mother's lost love in the face of Shizuka. Stop me if I've named anyone who isn't a victim of another person's sadness so far. This full sequence isn't everything that happened in the story, but the general idea is that there can't really be a single person as a type who isn't the victim here. Everyone is feeding off another in a very strange and toxic way. Takopi is essentially the only true untouched child in this line. I know, untouched, touched, whatever, get over it. Since all of his actions show that he doesn't actually know the consequences of anything he does. It serves as a great anchor for the audience, and is really just taken on this ride, and without any context, Takopi is the only one that could be considered close to evil here. It really embodies the name of the show more than the original sin part of Takopi's original sin actually does. It's a reverse scenario of the snake being corrupted by Adam and Eve rather than bringing chaos to Eden as the snake. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and Takopi's intentions are so pure that they ice over the road and send you spinning out into the abyss. Knowing nobody here is doing anything more than they're programmed to do is a lot sadder than the actual content of the show. And with this idea, I feel like I'm proven more correct. When you saw a lot of the dialogue around the show when it was airing, people were pointing fingers at the next problem all the way until the turning point halfway through with us following Marina in 2022, just to essentially confirm what we already know. It was nobody's fault. You see all these people falling for it, talking about who's the most evil person here, missing the point completely, but at the same time falling for the author's trick. And I think that's a very interesting way to take it from a writing perspective, since it does bring an interesting storytelling idea. Who in this sequence is a victim, stretching to the extent and making it so that you feel bad for trying to pin the blame on any one of the people in that line. I have a few personal standout moments in the show, but one of them in particular I want to talk about is one of the last confrontations with Takopi Shizuka has. It feels like the ultimate embodiment of the concept the show wants to tell. Like, who was there for Shizuka? Who was supposed to help her except for the dumb octopus that made things more simple, but also more complicated? She shouldn't have killed Marina. She shouldn't have gone to find her dog. She shouldn't have tried to ruin her father's new family with her delusion about Chappie. But who was there to tell her not to do these things? She had just an octopus that doesn't even know how to think like a human. Is it wrong that she did all these things? Yes, in an overall sense, but are you going to say it was her fault that she didn't have anyone to help her find another solution? What elevates the scene, though, for me is the fact that the voice acting and the soundtrack in it just takes what would already be a great scene into something entirely different. Like, the emotion on display here is also shown in another scene that I can use as an example. Like in 2022 with Marina and Takopi, the voice acting there in the scene following her mother asking for some more beer, because obviously she's asking for more beer, just has such a particular performance that I really love. To close this off, I recommend this show greatly to all who haven't seen it, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Now, I could be wrong. These are just my interpretations, all of which may be false, and I think I'm right, but if you have anything more to say about the show, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm trying something new with this type of format, so it'll change and I might make some changes. If you're wondering where I'm going, come and see. I would not be against a sequel where Marina and Shizuka have gay sex and kill people.